I'm trying to make a game in Unity, and this is part 3. I left part 2 off with one major task. I still need to set up multiple ground layers so that in the long term I can create collision, but also get rid of the void of nothingness, as I call it, around my sprites. I have 2 quick housekeeping items I attended to first. A render compatibility warning required me to select URP asset under the quality section of the project setting, so I think I have that resolved now. As for not seeing my character in the blue game screen, I had for some reason started building my tiles off to the side. So when I moved my character over, then the grid, everything was in view. Oh, and I also serialized the move field so that it shows up in the inspector. Now I can change speed quickly at any time. Now to finally build out the grid layers. Kidding, that's actually for another day, as today I am adding idle and movement animations instead. This ties into movement, so I figured I might as well get it done and out of the way. I started by adding the animation and animator windows. Now to add animations for both idle and walk. I'm following along the game code library video, which I'll link below. These guides have been absolutely amazing. I've tried to do a couple Unity Learn tutorials, but the majority of the ones I've come across seem to be outdated. They will show a field and I can't find that field. I haven't come across any of those kind of issues with game code library. I do get errors, but it seems to be the code conflicting between the assets I imported as well as the code I'm writing. So that is nothing on the guides. That is just the code from the assets are clashing with the codes I have added, and I just need to figure out how to make it work. And that is where I've been using ChatGPT as a tool. I get it to review the code and see if it can point out what's not working. However, this usually comes with multiple revisions and lots of confusion. More on this later. In the guide, it went over how to set an idle bounce animation. So this is if you didn't have an idle animation to kind of make one in Unity. It was really cool, but in the end I decided I didn't want to use it. Though it got me thinking this could be applied to other things like flowers in the background, as I love it when the environment has some movement. After the animations were created, it was time to put them in something called a blend tree, and then assign the animations to 8 different directions. Do this twice, once for move and once for idle. Once this was complete, I needed to add transitions between idle and walk. Now to define or make it all work in the code. This is where I always get stuck. Walking through a guide is pretty straightforward. It mostly makes sense at the time when I'm doing it, but I could never go off on my own. But each time I do manually add code, it seems to click just a little bit more. As mentioned before, I still get errors related to the assets I imported on day 1, as they do come with their own animations. And somehow I have this intertwined. This time it seems to be related to the input being defined as movement or move input. I seem to have both kicking around in my code. And each time I get ChatGPT to help me, I feel I get further away from the video guides code, which makes me concerned that I'll have a harder time following along as the playlist goes on. And as usual, it does take a few back and forth with ChatGPT before I can get the code to work. I can send the entire code to ChatGPT, but it has no idea what fields I selected within Unity unless I point it out. I finally got the code fixed, and the idle test was working as it should. However, my walking test is not. When I stop walking, I am facing the correct direction, but my walking animation is not working. So back to review everything I did. And after doing some digging, this is what I realized. My character is moving in all directions, but the animation is only showing the walk down animation. I feel I spent an hour on this only to realize I just had to add a capital X and Y on a section of code. That's it. But for some reason, I lost my idle animation after I did this. When I stop walking to the left or right, my character should face that way. So when I was trying to debug earlier why my animation wasn't working, I recalled that one of the fixes ChatGPT said to do was to rearrange a piece of code to be higher up. I did that and nothing happened, or so I thought. So once I had the walking animation working, but the idle animation wasn't working anymore, I asked ChatGPT, and its suggestion seemed to add more complexity to the code. So I decided to rearrange the code back to what it was before, and it worked. Well, mostly. My up idle animation isn't working for some reason, but hey, I got 3 out of 4. So what came out of this Unity session for me? Well, 2 big wins. The first is when I am dealing with issues, I can now ask ChatGPT, is it perhaps related to this? Being able to pinpoint why I think I'm having an issue can reduce a ton of back and forth and making unnecessary changes. And it kind of feels good to understand why something isn't working, even if I don't know the solution to fix it. My second win is not taking a ChatGPT suggestion and rather going with my intuition. I am sure a ChatGPT suggestion would have worked, but would I have had to do multiple revisions before I got there? And is it this complex code that I don't really understand? I would rather a simple fix right now while I'm learning. So while ChatGPT's fix may have been more optimal or better long term, at least I understand my simple fix. And perhaps I will regret that later, but at least then I'll understand why I'm regretting it. And bonus win. I have decided Unity Playground is not for me, at least not right now. I would rather just work in the code. As some people mention, this will allow for more flexibility in the future as well. I have been keeping an eye out to see if I can find a good up-to-date book on C#, and of course specifically related to Unity if possible. And looping back, I just went through absolutely everything. And I found out why my idle animation wasn't working. It is because I just didn't add a sprite to it. I somehow left it blank. The world makes sense again and balance has been restored. Now, before I wrap up part 3, just one thing out of curiosity. I was debating about documenting my Unity journey, but I do find it is helping me retain what I did by reviewing it for a video. So, if people are enjoying listening to my experience, please let me know so I'll continue to upload. Depending on what I'm working on, or rather the progress, I might not need to upload that often. But either or, it is my 2025 goal to learn, so I don't mind doing it behind the scenes if these videos aren't for everyone. And of course, you will continue to see my guides on my TiffyMissWiffy channel, as it is something I really do enjoy doing. So tune in next time for part 4, where I finally add grid layers. All for me to delete everything. Okay, maybe not that dramatic, but now that I have some of the basics, it is time for me to actually start working on something. It was suggested to start with a smaller project, and I'll admit, at first I was definitely stubborn as I was motivated to work on project. I had ideas flowing in, and I didn't want to lose that excitement or momentum. But after watching multiple videos of people completing their first projects and having to spend hours fixing something in their game as they just didn't know what they didn't know, such as monitor scaling for their sprites and having to redo them all, or fine-tuning assets before game mechanics had been ironed out and also having to redo them. Perhaps going through the entire process but on a smaller scale doesn't sound so bad. So I will stop being stubborn and start brainstorming a small, bite-sized project to learn with. Something with simple mechanics, such as ping pong or Space Invaders. Well, that is it for this update. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I don't know, maybe see you around for the next episode.
Hi, I'm TiffyMissWiffy and welcome to my channel. Wait, what's wrong with my voice?
Hi, I'm TiffyMissWiffy. Wait.
Ah, much better. It would seem I was just tired and in need of some caffeine. If you'd like to support a creator, check out my Ko-Fi page in the description below.